Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Purposeful Productivity Show. And tonight I'm going to continue the conversation we've been having this month in December about meetings. Yes, meetings, something that we all professionals, nonprofit leaders, faith based leaders, we all are in meetings and we are all organizing and planning, facilitating, and leading meetings pretty much every day. And today we're going to talk about virtual meetings. Yes, virtual meetings. They are something that we have had to embrace since about 2020 when the pandemic happened, and a lot of us weren't prepared for them. A lot of us still haven't learned how to put together a well organized, well produced virtual meeting. And I'm going to challenge us tonight to think about that, but then give us four keys, four elements to put together and help you and me organize and be ready to produce an effective virtual meeting. Again, welcome to the show tonight. I am happy to be here with you, and I want to give you value today. And so, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you're watching the replay, hang around. Don't hang up or disconnect before you get these four keys, especially if you are engaging in any kind of virtual meeting, whether it's on Zoom, WebEx, Restream, whatever you're using, Google Meet. Hang around. Of course, the big behemoth, Microsoft Teams. So if you're meeting, attending, organizing, planning, any meetings in those, hang around for tonight. I want to share with you. I'm going to go ahead and get right into the very first item tonight, and that is the first thing you want to do, planning any meeting of any size, especially virtual meetings, requires a team to pull it off. So the first key is build your team, build a group of people. It doesn't need to be a ton, but a group of people who will work with you to make sure that that meeting goes off and happens well. What are some of the roles that you would want to include? Well, of course, whoever your meeting organizer or your main organizer is, that may be you, but it may be someone else. That's the first team member. Then you need someone who's going to engage with your audience during the meeting so that you can prepare that person. So if you're facilitating and you're not able to answer questions or make sure that no question gets missed or comment doesn't get missed in chat, because that is the way that the meeting participants are primarily engaging, then you want to make sure that there's someone available who's going to engage with them, welcome them, remind them to post a comment, remind them to ask their question, remind them to give you feedback when you're looking at this camera and you're in Hollywood Squares. Another team member that you would want is somebody who handles your registration. If you are planning a meeting or running a meeting that requires registration, a lot of times we do have someone who's handling the registration. That means the person who creates the registration form, tracks how many people have been registered, track any kind of information you're asking for your participants to give you before the meeting so that it's given to the correct person who can handle that material as it comes in. And someone who's going to make sure that the registration is going smoothly and that you and any guest you have an idea beforehand how many participants to expect. Are you expecting 100 people or are you expecting 1,000 people? That will help your guest speakers and anyone else who has a speaking part to make sure they're preparing for the right number of participants in the meeting. Another person would be what I call this person my run of show or tech director. This is the person who's going to be putting together your visuals for your presentation. Sometimes you call them a designer, but that person or one or two people who will put together the material for the visuals that you'll be sharing, not a wall of words, not a wall of words, because you are and your guest speakers are the presentation, but visuals that will enhance, that will help guide your participants through the conversation, help give them information that they need during the meetings. The person who's organizing that, the person who's putting together the run of show, so that those who have speaking parts, especially, know exactly when they're going to speak, how long they have, what comes after them, who comes before them, whether there are breakout rooms and other small gatherings in your meeting. So those are some key roles to include in the team that you build. Now, let me say this. The people may be a large team and it may be a smaller team where one person is fulfilling more than one role. But building that team or creating that team and preparing them is job one. Everything else will go much more smoothly if you get that team together first. People, and people, because your meeting, again, is about people. Number two is establishing a meeting production playbook. This is your guide. Especially if you have meetings that you repeat, and there may be once a month, once a quarter, once a year. They're a little bit larger. They're a little bit more formal. They're not, we're just going to get together for 30 minutes and hash out something. These are meetings that require a bit more effort and planning. Establish a playbook. And a playbook is simply a document that says, what are the steps you go through? Who has responsibility for what outcomes? When does various planning steps take place? How far in advance? And any other little, what I call little gotchas, links that you always use, reminders that you always give, an introduction that you use regularly, music that you use in your meeting. Make sure it's copyright free. And any other kinds of regularly used artifacts, put it in a playbook. It can be a document, a word processing document. It can be in a notes app like Evernote. It can be in Notion. It can be in a slide presentation, Google Slides or PowerPoint or Keynote. But make it one document, one place that you use, and your team goes to it. And I'm going to come back later and share with you why I said that your team goes to it, goes to this playbook. Playbooks are very, very powerful. They're a little bit more intense or complex than a checklist, but they make sure that you don't have to remember because it's there for you and your team is prepared. In an earlier show, I talked about making sure you prepare your team. Well, playbooks are a great way to prepare your team. Number three is creating a virtual meeting project plan. This is different than your playbook. This is taking elements of your playbook and then those items that are unique regarding whatever the meeting is. Let me give you an example. Every other month, I work with a team and we produce a webinar. That webinar, we always have a guest speaker come in, some executive come in and talk about a topic that's relevant to the group of people who are gathering. We have generally a few hundred people who register and show up, and our guest speakers are always very, very busy. So we have a templated project plan that we follow. What we change is anything unique relative to that guest speaker and the way they operate. We use our template. We start with that. We have the core elements in a playbook, but I then can change the details in the plan to fit the event. So that is what I mean by having a project plan in place for your meeting. It is really powerful. And week by week, as you're planning, your team knows this week we focus on these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 activities to get them done so that we don't fall behind. And we can see if if we're going earlier, if we're going falling behind, what's being affected and whether we're going to have a problem or if we have time to make it up without stressing out the entire team. Okay, so that's your project plan is number 3. Number 4 is figuring out, I talked about this earlier, but figuring out a way to get your participants to engage. That means in your planning process, you're going to plan out activities and specific engagements, whether it's a poll or a Mentimeter or Kahoot or some other activity. You can put those in your playbook, but don't forget people are looking at a screen or camera or both, and they can kind of drift off. So you want to have activities and things in your meeting to keep them engaged, to keep them going, to have them have something to look at. So make sure that you're engaging your meeting participants and you plan for the meeting participants to be engaged. Okay? So that's number 4. Number 5 is, and this is where I said I was going to tell you why I said your team to debrief, to get your team involved with the playbook and you could come back. After your meeting, after this virtual meeting you've held, hold a team debrief. And I'm really pretty systematized at this point about the way I do debriefs. I ask 3 simple questions, but I ask them in 3 phases. The 3 simple questions I ask is, what went well? What should we change? And I'm modifying that. What do we change in terms of how we did what we did? And what do we need to stop doing? Now, I said I'd do it in 3 phases, and I encourage you to do it. Talk about the pre-planning, the planning portion before the meeting ever occurred. Because most people, when they think about I'm doing a debrief, they only talk about the debrief in terms of the actual event itself or the actual meeting. But leading up to the meeting, it's just as important. If some portion of your planning didn't go well or your pre-production did not go well, you want to call it out, but you want to call it out from the perspective of what do we change or what do we stop doing? Not just that it didn't go well, because then those answers go back into your playbook so the next time you're 1% better. Then you ask the same set of questions, or you can make your own questions, but you ask the same set of questions about the actual meeting itself, the virtual meeting. Ask those questions, answer the questions, and not just you. I would say if you're the leader, get the answers from your team and use both of these. Listen to what they're saying more than telling them what you think. And then your team will grow and your meetings will get better. Your virtual meetings will get better. And here's my bonus tip. And it has to do with meeting engagement. This is, if you will, the bonus. The bonus is when you are planning engagement, plan in and intentionally ask participants to come on camera, not be hidden behind the camera. It is much easier and much more engaging to be able to read body language and facial expressions and to see people than it is to see a wall of pictures as a speaker. Encourage them to come on and encourage them, I said, in chat. But if you have a speaker, if you're a speaker and you don't mind people just raising their hand and talking, do it that way. But the bonus is begin to encourage participants, attendees, in your virtual meeting to turn the camera on and be fully engaged in the meeting. Those are the tips that I wanted to share tonight. And I wanted you to get, again, the last one is that debrief. The debrief is huge. And my bonus is get people on camera to talk to you. So, if you've enjoyed this conversation tonight, I'm going to ask you to do a couple things. Number one, subscribe to the channel if you have not already subscribed. Hit the like button if you haven't hit the like button already. And if you have questions or if I can assist you in any way, feel free to reach out to me at florencedonald.live. And I know we've got some folks in the building tonight, so I'm going to hop to you and see who's out there and say hello. I went through the material really fast tonight. Hello, Frank Jackson, one of our moderators. And this is an example of having the team who are participating and encouraging the participants, the attendees, to engage. Yes. And the emotional CEO says, Happy Friday, Live Tribe. Yes, happy Friday, Live Tribe. So excited to have you here. And you may not be commenting, and that's okay. If you're not commenting and you're watching, welcome to the Live Tribe. If you're watching the replay, welcome to the community. Love having you here. And thank you, Roy, for sticking your head in and saying hello. Yes, catch the replay. These are good tips. These are things that I've been doing, and they make a huge difference. And this is someone, welcome, Anne Marie. Glad to have you in the building with us this evening. I am thrilled that you all took some of your Friday to be with me, and you're going to see some changes coming. I will give you a little bit of a heads up. We're going to do something slightly different than what we've been doing over the last few months in December. You'll learn more about that. And if you have not gone to my Buy Me a Coffee page, I would encourage you to go to the my Buy Me a Coffee page, because you're going to have an opportunity to get some information that's not on YouTube, that's not in a video necessarily, but it's information that I'm putting out to the community to continue to help us get better and remove friction in our productivity systems. So that's it tonight. Loved having you all.